Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students. Welcome to our course Globalization and Spread of English. Today our topic is definition of the concept of multilingualism and how does multilingualism develop. So first of all, we will see what multilingualism is in simple words and then some definitions by some linguists. So we will start our definition or in a simple way. Multilingualism. Multilingualism is the act of using polyglotism. Polyglotism, what is polyglotism means? Usage of multiple languages. So multilingualism is the act of using polyglotism or using multiple languages either by an individual speaker or by a community of speakers. First of all, see this term or this concept of multilingualism. Multi mean many, several, many we can say. Oh, lingual or lingua, or we can say lingua mean or lingual mean language or ism. Ism, this word ism, it's a French word via Latin from Greek and then into English. It became ism, and it is a suffix. As we all know, it is a suffix that added to the end of the word to indicate that the word represents a specific practice or a specific system or philosophy, or it could also be explained in terms of the term ism. It could be, we can say, an action or state or conditions, sometimes principles or doctrines, or sometimes we can say it's related to devotion also. So many meanings we can derive from this word ism. Or for example, if we talk about its action, baptism, to make the individuals into Christian, or then there is a Hinduism, it's a what we say, the condition or the systems that Hindu perform in according to the culture or according to their religion. So multilingualism means the action or the state or condition or the system of speaking multiple or many languages. So multilingualism is becoming a social phenomenon governed by the needs of globalization and cultural openness, because now we can say the whole world is the global village and the things are shared by different cultures, and sharing of the things or approach or access, what we can say, access of the things, it's easier now for the whole world. Now the things are easily accessible. So owing to the ease of the access to information facilitated by the internet, individuals' exposure to multiple languages is becoming increasingly frequent, thereby promoting the need of acquire additional language. People who speak several languages are also called polyglots, right? Polyglots mean the multilingual speaker, the speaker or the people who can speak many languages or who can speak several languages at a time. So think about yourself. How can you say that you are a multilingual? Yes, we can say we are multilingualism. We are multilingual speakers because we know if we are Punjabi speaker, we know Punjabi, we know Urdu, we can speak English language also. And if your native or mother tongue is not Punjabi, you can replace this Punjabi to Pashto and Sindhi and other languages. You can include that English. You are what we can say, you can speak English because it's our compulsion, because we want to get higher studies, or it's a language of instructions or medium of instructions, we can say. So we know Urdu, we know English, we know Arabic also, because we are Muslims and our holy book, Holy Quran, is in Arabic language. So we know Arabic also just one skill. We are proficient in one skill of Arabic language. We can just read, we cannot understand, we cannot speak, or we can not able to listen or understand. So the part of reading, we are what we say, we are proficient enough in this reading skill of Arabic language. So we are multilingual speakers, being a Pakistani. So multilingual speakers outnumber monolingual speakers in the whole world or throughout the world's population. Yes, they are greater in numbers as compared to monolingual speakers are least in numbers than to multilingual speakers. So definitions of multilingualism. Lee defined a multilingual individual as anyone who can communicate in more than one language, be it active through speaking and writing or passive through listening and reading. Now think about your own languages, being a multilingual speaker, in which language skills you are active and in which language skills you are passive. So a well-known definition of multilingualism is given by the European Commission: the ability of societies, institutions, groups, and individuals to engage on a regular basis with more than one language in their day-to-day lives. So we cannot say that the just individual can multilingual, or there are some societies, institutions, and overall groups, cultural groups that could be multilingual, and they are using different languages in their daily lives on a regular basis. Multilingualism is a powerful fact of life around the world, or circumstance arising at the simplest level from the need to communicate across speech communities. We just want to interact with other people, we want to share our things, we want to share our ideas, opinions with other people. So it's easy with our country fellow, whether we are monolingual or bilingual. But if we are not multilingual, then there are some difficulties or troubles we have to face when we want to interact with the other community members or with the other members of other different communities or different cultures or different speakers of different languages. So it's a powerful device or powerful tool if we are multilingual. There have been often existed important lingua francas which serve as aids to a cross-group understanding and which usually represent the language of an influential or prestigious society. Like, for example, these are the languages: Greek, Latin, French, Arabic, and currently English are dominating languages. Although now we can get estimation of this language that English is the most widely spoken or dominant language as compared to other languages. Arabic is also widely spoken language, but it's a specific or limited context. This language is spoken, and Greek and Latin and French. Although there was a time when these languages were very influential, but now English has dominated, or English got the supremacy over all these languages, as we have discussed earlier in our previous lectures. Unequal amounts of social, economic, and political power. For example, Switzerland, with its recognition of German, French, Italian, and Romansh, or Roman language, Romansh, shows clear linguistic dominance for one variety at the canton level. Canton level means at district level, means one variety of these languages is spoken in many cases, or there are some dominant dialects, or there are some dominant varieties of these languages. But not, we cannot say that these are the areas where the German is spoken in a uh, wide range, or the French and Italian, different areas, different districts or towns, the different languages are spoken with the different ratio, what we can say, with different amount, as the social need and economic and political, on the basis of these needs. So we can say that these four languages, German, French, Italian, and Romansh languages, are not in any event anything like equal in cross-community utility. So it depends upon the needs of the people. It depends upon the needs of economic, social, and political needs. So in what way the people use these languages in Switzerland. Singapore also has four official languages. In Pakistan, as you know, we have an official language. Which one though? Which one that? Yes, English language is our official language, whereas Urdu is our national language, or some other languages. Arabic is our religious language, or there are some other provincial languages that are spoken at the provinces level. So Singapore also has four official languages: English, Mandarin, Tamil, and Malay. But the later two are much less important than the former pair. Means English or Mandarin are very famous languages over there in Singapore also, whereas the rest of the two languages, Tamil and Malay, these are the least famous languages or least spoken languages over there. Ireland recognizes both Irish and English has its national varieties, but the first has means Irish has increasingly only symbolic significance, just lip service of the Irish language is being done. But as concern English language, it's very famous and it's getting increased status, being a it's a national language or national variety. So it's also English is also being used by the Irish people. Let's talk about Africa. Many African countries, for example, are societies so linguistically complex that multilingual interaction is commonplace. Everywhere we can see people speaking in different languages and multi-languages. In officially English Nigeria, some 18 million people speak about 400 languages. Or if we talk about the overall languages of the Nigeria, in Nigeria there are 520 languages spoken over there by the Nigerian people, and the very famous languages in the states of Africa are Hausa or Yoruba, Fulfulde, Igbo, Yoruba, Ibibio, Edo, and Kanuri have most of the speakers in Nigerian states that are spoken the famous as a famous language. Next, there is a occurrence of multilingualism at a personal level. It has a great deal to do with patterns of social interaction. What sort of social pattern of social interaction a person have or an individual have. So it depends upon the pattern of social interaction. For example, a person has to deal with his or her siblings. He will use mother tongue L1 or what we say first language, or if a person is dealing with another community members, he will prefer lingua franca, or he will use a language like English language will be used. Or if a person is dealing with a job, or he or she is concerned with a trade or business, he will use an official or a sophisticated language. So it depends upon the our social interaction, in what way or what we say in interlocutor, what sort of interlocutor we have, what sort of speakers we have in front of us. And so it depends upon the situation or social situation where we will use which language, where we will prefer which language with what sort of speakers. So it's a personal choice, or it's a personal option, or sometimes it's not as personal option. Sometimes there are some compulsion that we have to speak what we say a prestigious language, or a language of that is considered lingua franca, or that is considered our official language. Sometimes it will become our compulsion. We have to bound to that particular language, but most of the time we can see it's our personal choice which language we prefer, which with what sort of speakers. For example, in one of my students who is doing thesis upon this topic, that the Punjabi speaker, they prefer Urdu language when they are outside of the home. But no matter whether they are at the home, they speak Punjabi, but when they are outside their home, they speak Urdu. Or sometimes, most of the time, they prefer, if they speak English language, they prefer to speak English language. Otherwise, Urdu language is spoken by the Punjabi speaker. Whereas The Pashto speaker, they will not prefer any other language if they are in the circle of their friends. They will not prefer this language, Urdu, as it's our national language, although they can speak Urdu language or they can speak English language, but they will prefer English language. They will not prefer to speak English language or any other language or national language. They will prefer to speak in their own mother tongue or Pashto language or Sindhi or what sort of language L1 they have. They don't hesitate. They don't feel shy to speak their own language in front of the circle of their friends. So you might hear in some examples, you might live in the United States where English has de facto status. De facto means actual status of English language. What we can say, English is a lingua franca. It's language of power or languages of widely spoken speaker over there. And just your life in a heterogeneous city means a city where many languages are spoken over there. So heterogeneous city like New York, you may require frequent switching between English and Spanish. Or you might live in India, where in India there are almost 15 languages, and never leave your monolingual area. Means although there are many languages, you are multilingual, but you will speak just one language. So it depends upon the situation. It depends upon the personal choice. It depends upon the personal selection. So if we talk about New York, as we have seen here, a heterogeneous city. So I want to tell you there are some languages, the famous languages that are being spoken by the New York people. English as a de facto means it has its actual status. It is spoken by the children or from age 5, or it is spoken by the older people at home. They speaking English language as a primary language, as a L1. Apart from English language, Spanish or Chinese or different dialects or different sub-language of the Chinese, like Cantonese or Mandarin, or there are some other languages like Russian, Italian or French language is also being spoken in New York. Next, there are some reasons for developing multilingualism approach. Why multilingualism is needed? Why we need to adopt this multilingualism approach? So multilingualism arises when language get into contact. When different languages come into contact, they are speaker of different languages encounter with the speaker of other languages. The reasons for language contact is simple need of communication. We want to communicate with other people. We want to convey our message. We want to share our ideas, our opinions, our thoughts with other people. So we use language. And if the hearer or the next speaker who is standing before us, he or she is unable to speak our own language, definitely we will be using two languages at a time. So the basic need is to communicate with other people. One of the occasions that could affect such a situation is population movement. People go abroad sometimes, or there are some natural disasters. As a result of this, the people move from, or people migrate from one country to another country. So movement of the population is also could be the cause of developing multilingualism. However, apart from basic need to communicate with other different linguistic background, or the population movement is also could be the cause of multilingualism. There are some other reasons. Sometimes people do not have to move to come into contact with another language, which would be the case with territorial expansion or imperialist or colonial policies, and associated military and economic pressures prompted peoples to adopt the language of the expansionist regime. For example, we can see the example of British Empire, or when they moved towards India, and we have discussed with greater detail in our cross-cultural communication lecture how they came to subcontinent with three-folded agenda: missionary purpose, trade, and the promotion of their language, promotion of their English language. So these are also could be the cause when, as a result of these sorts of policies or colonial policies, people are forced to speak that language. Not if not forced, people, the circumstances are created in the way, in that way the people prefer to speak that particular language. That language has become the status of symbol, or that language has become the that could be language of getting a good job. So people are forced, and sometimes people are not forced, but they want to know that language. They want to speak that language. The colonial influence ceases to be the main factor for the use of the foreign language, and convenience and cultural prestige become dominant reason. A prominent example is, of course, British Empire, as we have discussed already. Today, all the former British colonies have regained their independence, but many of them, the African Union, use English as the official language or one among their official languages. Or we can also think about India and Pakistan. We got freedom from English Empire or from British Raj, but we entangled with the fatals of the language, of their own language, that we have to now we are using their language, although they had gone a century ago, but still we can feel the effects of their British Empire, British Raj, when they came here, and in what way they ruled this territory, or in what way they made policies for the local people, and condemning their local languages. Or Lord Macaulay, can you remember Lord Macaulay's speech, in which he said, we want to prepare a class of people, or we want to prepare such class that would be Indian in blood and color, but in that would be English in moral, in intellectual, or in opinion. So they have prepared that class. So they had gone, but their class is here representing them, and that's why, although we can think about ourselves, we are also the member of that class. We are speaking English because we have to deal with this language at any cost. Being a language, English has become the language of higher education. English language has become the highest status, so we have to deal with this language. Anyhow, we are happy or we are not happy, we are using that language, that their language, the language of the British Empire or British Raj. Next, there are some other reasons, like border areas. People would stay over there and they need to deal with other people, people of other communities or other languages, or related to their business or related to their everyday communication. They use different languages. And next, there is the industrialized settings. Industrialized settings, the language which is dominant politically or economically, or superior language, that language will be used. Or the nation who is politically, the nation which is politically or economically superior, the language of that particular nation will be used. For example, here we can say we have just option number one, only one option to speak English. In industrialized setting, we have the different digitized devices. We can digital devices. We use this language. There are instructions written over there in English language. In very few cases we can see some other language like Arabic or Chinese, but in majority cases, or in majority in industries, English is being used. If we talk about uh, international level, so English is being used at industrialized setting. In rural areas and ethnically mixed regions, where languages are learned through face-to-face interaction, the use of languages is more balanced because people have equal interest in acquiring each other's language. Anyway, there is often cultural and educational motivation that prompts people to consider second or third language acquisition. As we were talking about the English language, so it is our educational motivation. We want to get higher education, so that's why we have to be proficient enough in English language. Although it's not our cultural need, it's that we have to speak at any English language at any cost. We can fulfill our local needs without speaking English language, without getting command of this language. But when we want to go abroad, we want to get higher studies, higher education, then it's very necessary for us to be proficient user of English language. So it could be also the reasons. And where the people of different ethnic groups or they speak different languages, so multilingualism can be developed over there in those areas. There are some other reasons also that we can include in the process of multilingualism, or but we can say there are some things, or there are some, but we can say there are some elements that we can include, or we can say these are not limited to these elements. Multilingualism is now not limited to a geographical area or social setup or different religious ceremonies, rituals, or medium. For example, geographical area. In comparison with the past, multilingualism is not limited to geographically close languages or to specific border areas of trade routes. It is more global phenomenon spread over different parts of the world. Or social multilingualism is no longer associated with specific social strata, professions, or rituals. It is increasingly spread across the different social classes, professions, and social cultural activities. Next medium. In the past, multilingual communication was often limited to writing and mail was very slow. In the process of the mail was very slow. The signal problem and many issues we encountered in the past and in the past days. But now in the 21st century, it has become very quick way. But how can we become quick user of the different devices, or for example email, or we are very proficient user of some social medias. So in 21st century, because of the internet, multilingual communication is multimodal and instantaneous. A quick way process it has become through the medium of multilingualism. Religion, different religious centers have where religious ceremonies, worship, and prayer services take place. Apart from this, community centers that also host religious events for a group of different communities. There are in Western countries, there are some community centers or Islamic centers where all people are invited and they can attend the religious ceremonies or being performed by the no matter the you know, with the uh, no matter what religion they have, they are invited without any discrimination of the religion, also or any caste. So they can come, they can attend, they can enjoy the religious ceremonies. Or as a result, for example, if we talk about Islamic Center, many people converted to Islam, and they are really very inspired, or they like the religious ceremonies and they want to become Muslims. So the community center is also has become the cause of multilingual setting. So next, there is a globalization. It has increased the value of multilingualism. Speaking different languages has an added value. If a person who knows different languages, he is given preferences, or he when doing a job, when applying a job, a person who is multilingual, he will be considered more proficient as compared to bilingual or monolingual speakers. Although it's not these things are not reality basis, but this image has become in our country, especially a person who is multilingual, who can speak different languages, is considered very intellectual, or very, what we can say, a very educated person. So, as Edward pointed out, speaking English can be necessary, but the ability to speak other languages nonetheless ensures a competitive edge. It could be advantageous to speak other languages. Global interaction through the internet, email, or video conferencing in business and the economic sphere by global cooperation, politics, academia, and administration increase the migration, short and long term, and the study abroad. These are all are the factors and elements that became the cause of multilingualism. This need for other languages is obvious if we consider that English is the most widely used English on the internet, but the percentage of internet users of English has decreased from 51.3% in 2000 to 26.8% in 2011. In 10 years' time, and there is a greater amount, least amount of the user of English language. The percentage for the second most used language in 2011, Chinese, was 24%, and for the third, Spanish, 7.8%. Internet World Stage 2011, according to that report. But many other languages are used as well as different languages are being used. But the English, Chinese, and Spanish, these are the first, second, and third spoken languages of the world. Its growing importance in modern society, multilingualism has attracted increasing attention in applied language, and it can be seen in titles of journals, articles, books, and academic conferences that use the term multilingualism. You can find out thousands of articles and research papers that are written on the topic of this multilingualism. Two approaches of multilingualism: a balanced multilingual and unbalanced multilingual. A balanced multilingual is equally fluent in two or more languages, and unbalanced multilingual has different levels of proficiency in different languages. For example, a person who knows two or more languages, for example, take the example of Pakistani community. We know three languages, right? National language, Urdu, and official language, English, and a provincial language, Punjabi. So, what about the proficiency level? We can see English, we can read, we can write, we can speak, or we can listen or understand. It means four language skills. We are proficient enough. Or what about Urdu? We can read, write, listen and speak or understand four language skills. We are proficient user of Urdu language as well. And Punjabi, we can understand, we can read, write, listen and speak. So we are proficient user of all these three languages. It means it is a balanced multilingual approach. On the other hand, if a person knows two or three languages but not all four language skills of all different languages, for example, in reading, writing, listening, and speaking, maybe that person is fluent or a fluent speaker of one language, but the other he can understand. The one language he can read, the other language he can write. So different proficiency levels are involved over there in unbalanced multilingual. But in balanced multilingual means that person must be fluent and must be proficient user of all four language skills in reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Today, the idea of perfect mastery and perfect balance of two or more languages is no longer considered a requirement to be bilingual or multilingual. So, this is not our requirement, being a bilingual or multilingual speaker, that we must be proficient enough, we must have perfect mastery and command over all those languages. There is a need or requirement. What requirement is, we have to communicate with other people. We have to participate in communication. We are able to, if we are able to participate, we are able to converse with other people in different required languages. It means we are this is sufficient, and then there is no need to be perfect mastery and perfect balance of two or more languages. This is not a criteria. This criteria is no longer required by bilingual or multilingual approach. Next, there is atomistic and holistic views of multilingualism. According to the Oxford dictionaries, the term holistic can be understood as the belief that the parts of something are intimately interconnected and explicable only by reference to the whole, and can be opposed to atomistic, which regards something as interpretable through analysis into distinct and separable independent elementary components. For example, we are teaching some grammatical elements like narration, parts of speech, or active passive voice to second language learner. And here the purpose to teach all these grammatical elements to make the learner proficient user of the overall language. We want to make the learners to be able to understand, to be able to read, write, and listen, and to speak all four language skills. And he or she must be expert or must get command and mastery over all those four language skills. Although we are teaching him or her some selected elements of grammatical elements, but we can say. Whereas an atomistic approach, when we are learning all these separate grammatical elements to a second language learner, here our purpose or our concern is not related to the make the learners a proficient user of that language, but here the purpose is just to make the learner able to understand those grammatical elements only. For example, he must be able to use the narration in accurate way, or he must be use the other grammatical elements or parts of speech he must understand in a very well way, or he can use in just for in be able to use in writing only. And here we are not concerned about the overall language skills or overall language proficiency. Just we want here, in according to the atomistic approach, we want to make the learner to be able to get some knowledge, some awareness, and understanding of those particular grammatical elements, not the whole language. So this is the main difference between holistic and atomistic approach. Holistic means overall, or if we are dealing with some parts, it means that parts are related to the whole. Whereas in atomistic approach, we are dealing with some parts or we are teaching some elements. It means we are just focusing on just elements. We are not here concerned about the whole or language, or about the whole proficiency of the particular language. The study of multilingualism, particularly in linguistics and psycholinguistics, has traditionally focused on the analysis of specific elements rather than on the relationship among these elements. Here we can see in psycholinguistics, language acquisition or language learning devices or use of different devices, and how language is stored in our brain or in our mind, or it's related to memory. It just focuses to get mastery or to get awareness or to get the knowledge about those particular things. Here we are not concerned about the we are not concerned about to develop a relationship between all these elements. We get the oh sorry we study the different parts in a different way, in an independent way. Atomistic research on multilingualism usually looks at one specific feature of syntax, phonetics, or lexis in the development and acquisition of one language. We are teaching our learners grammar, we are teaching our learner phonics or phonetics or phonemes, or different other lexis, or, or meanings or semantics. Here the purpose is to make the learner a proficient user of that particular one language. And we develop some relationship between those elements. For example, the focus can be on the acquisition of WH questions or weak vowels in English, or the subjunctive in Spanish. As Lee pointed out, that the idea is to look at one language only, or one language at a time. Even proficiency in 2 or 3 languages is analyzed. So the atomistic view, which is the most widespread view adopted in multilingualism studies, characterized by focusing on specific elements and separating the languages. So according to this atomistic view, code mixing and code switching, these are considered the lack of competency for a second language user. He's using or is applying this code mixing or code switching technique in his or her speech. So these are considered the lack of competency or lack of command over that particular language. So it becomes a problematic according to the atomistic view. Atomistic views of multilingualism are widespread and generally accepted, but they have also been challenged since the late 80s, 1980s. Grudgin, using a holistic view of bilingualism, considered that the bilinguals are fully competent speaker hearers who have a unique linguistic profile. So, according to the holistic view, bilingualism, to be a bilingual or to understand the different languages, it's a competency of the speaker and hearer, and then they can understand different languages easily or thoroughly in their speech or in their conversation. Demographic reality about the different languages overall throughout the world in different countries which are spoken. The 2001 Australian census indicates that over 200 languages are used in the forms of Australians. Apart from indigenous or local languages, they include languages from all over the world, including those which are taught in schools because of their international importance or economic or other significance in the Southeast Asian region. Among those languages with considerable increases in home user over the past decades are Mandarin, it's a Chinese language, home user, and there are Indonesian languages. There are percentages given in the brackets. You can see over there Indonesian language, Vietnamese language, Korean language, and Cantonese. It's also Chinese language, which is not a school language, and Hindi, which is not taught in the mainstream school, but for which there is a provision on Saturdays and the matriculation examination. And Sydney's population, 27% of the Melbournes speak a language other than English at home. A high incidence of linguistic diversity, or linguistic diversity means different languages or different languages is also a feature of urban centers of the other immigrant countries of New World such as US, Canada, Brazil, and Argentina. Or today, it's also true of those cities of the previously monolingual Old World, such as London, Paris, Hamburg, Stockholm, and Amsterdam. These were the cities which were considered a monolingual, just only one language were being spoken over them in the olden days, but now they are multilingual, or there is a linguistic diversity, or people of different language background could be seen over there now in these cities. So it's end of our today's lecture.